Dr. Tommy John is our guest, son of Tommy John, Major League pitcher, who is our panelist today. The book is Minimize Injury, Maximize Performance, a Sports Parent's Survival Guide. That's catchy. That sounds like you can apply that immediately. Tommy, It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show. Give me the number one thing. I'm sure you do seminars, talks to parents, and parents who have the right thing in mind. I want my kid to be good and be able to flourish in some way. What's the number one thing you say to, hey, this is what you got to do to survive?
So here's what I tell them is that there's no doctor, there's no coach, there's no therapist, there's no facility, wearable technology. There's nothing that's going to save your kid. From womb to 13 or 14 is the most important time in any athlete's life, whether they play sport or not. What happens from 0 to 13 years old is the foundation that everything else is built upon, that we're going to talk about later, that you've already talked about now, that it's in their hands. The solution is in their hands. It's in the homes. We can't expect to be saved. It's on you and the decisions you're making. With that responsibility comes amazing power.
Okay, I'm going to jump right to the end here because I was going to ask you this, because you're the son of a major league player. And it's changed dramatically even from when my kids were in high school.
Right.
My kids only at the very end had to start playing year-round for their sport. Give up everything else because if you don't specialize, you get left behind. So what do you make of that system now that that's the reality parents deal with?
So that's part of the three-tiered problem. We have the American lifestyle, but you also have this business youth sports. It's $17 billion. They're the ones marketing that falsity. Specialize early, you become better. It's not true. There's, again, from 0 to 13 is something that has to be built. There will be a time and place during optimal development, the highest performance. Health, I would hope, will be a priority, but let's just talk performance. There is a time and place, and as late as you can is the way to go.
So it might be high school, but you're not saying when youth
exactly, not as early as we're seeing now. There is a time, but it's well later. And the problem, the marketing that's going on is that business model.
You devote a good bit of time in your book on technology, saying technology lowers the immune system. Explain that.
So that's a fascinating point, and I try to share this as much as I can. When kids are staring, when we all stare at these screens, there's bits of information that come in that we need to adapt to. That's creating a sympathetic fight or flight response. By design, science, by design, our systems are designed to lower an immune response so we can fight or flight and survive that moment. These kids are staying in that moment. They're in a dominant sympathetic fight or flight state, which does the reciprocal of immune. So they're in an immune deplete state. Outside baseball, outside football, they can't heal from the just generals of childhood if they are experiencing a childhood that we would hope to optimally see. It happens with us. Their adults, meaning their bodies can't handle it, so it's concentrated and magnified in a youngster, where you and I, still rules apply, but we can adapt a little easier.
All right, so what do you do?
So you try to control that amount of exposure to it. Some of the healthier families coming through my office, hey, you guys got smartphones? Your kids have smartphones? Not till they were 16 or 17. Wow, what'd you do with the social pressure? Because there's going to be a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
How did you have friends? Because that's the big thing. If we go the opposite of the majority, we're going to lose everybody. The parents were like, we knew how important it was for my child. In adulthood after, we just made the decision as a family, and that was it. So I asked the kid, what's your point of view? Perspective. Nothing. If I had to make a call, I borrowed my friend's phone. If I had to video something, they would video me climbing out of a tree or jumping out of a tree. They managed that, but it was a family decision to say that in the face of the majority of some of the toughest decisions we got to make.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to building resiliency, right? So how do you do that? How do you expose your kid to enough where it's not just mom and dad driving you to practice, taking care of you, being all around you, take you to camps and all this, and yet letting the alpha come out where you can operate and dominate in the real world?
So that's the thing. I try to tell people to reinforce themselves with what's going out there. The research and the science supports what we're talking about. We're doing the opposite of what's saying. Specialization increases your rate of injury. Multi-sport athletes are healthier, they get better grades. Delaying technology rotting brains. Nutrition, playing multiple sports, it's behind them. So in the face of all that, if you wanted this gung-ho elite player in life, this is the way to go about it. And eventually, others will just kind of follow. You have to, in the face of the majority state, listen, the research is there. I don't want my kid to be a statistic. But then their defense is, well, my kid loves the sport. Kids love candy, going to bed late, and playing with fire. But we make better decisions in there. So this is how extreme we are. What we're talking about is just as dangerous as fire, sleeping, playing in traffic.
Most kids of major leaguers, of professional athletes that I speak to a whole bunch everywhere. Most of them say that my dad was not pushing me. Dad was not all over me. So what's the right blend between I'm there because I'm helping you get there and I'm not being the stage parent?
That has to be the hardest thing, and that's what I'm real sensitive to, because your job is to raise a healthy, happy child, to be a successful adult. And you only want what's best for them. But there is a balance. And again, that's why I try to say, if you reinforce yourself with the information that's out there, then even though intuitively, you're like, I knew it was right, but here it is in print. I knew it was right. Or that's your out. Here, read this research. This is the way we're going. But again, even my dad, like, it was hard. He never pushed me till I was 17, 18 years old. And then it was the nudging of, hey, why don't you go hit today? Hey, why don't you do that? Almost annoying, but I was a teenager.
And that's a time when you can handle that,
That was
a lot better.
Physically, emotionally, intellectually handle that.
Here's the important question. I have to get this in. I almost missed this now. Youth baseball, power and velocity get rewarded. It's the incentive system. How do you buck that? Where we all say we want Mark Burley, John Smoltz wants guys who learn how to pitch, and yet what gets rewarded? Hitting the gun and hitting deep and not learning how to play the game the right way. So how do you buck that?
So regardless of what sports choose to do or how sports change at the highest level, we still develop, as human athletes, a very similar formula from the ground up in a pyramid fashion. There's got to be fundamentals and foundation coming up to the top. So let baseball do that. Let that be the way. But worrying about it from 0 to 13 is not the time to worry about it. There will be a time to think. Nothing wrong with wanting to throw hard for 40 pitches because you have 14 pitchers on your staff or whatever it is, right? But the way to develop to best adapt to that environment. And that's all you can hope to do. Put yourself in the best position possible to adapt to whatever the demand is. And if the demand goes up, your preparation has to exceed that.
You're right, but that means if you're 15 and you're just throwing 75 and other kids are throwing 88, you're left behind. What do you do?
For that period of time, you're going to have to take a bullet, so to speak, for that time. You continue on the path that we talk about. You continue. When it's your time and when your body chooses to express, it will when it's optimal. And then you can sustain at that high level for durability, not just increasability at the expense of durability.
Okay, so don't seek the specialization or the gimmicks that will go to a camp. I'm going to increase my number.
Wait, and it will happen when it's ready to happen. And I've told parents, you might not make a team. That's the end of the world. No, don't make a team. Take that time period that you would have had. Now you work. And now you go, and we'll see you next season. And you'll be heads and shoulders because that's how it works. That's how the development happens. That's the formula.
I'm glad you said it that way. Right, because there's consequences. Right?
Oh, yeah.
There could be that. And it's like, no, we can't let that happen.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Again, a sports parent survival guide. It's harder than ever. Tommy, great seeing you. Thank you so much. Good luck with the book.